millennials, and they have grown up in different environment compared to baby boomers. Now, current industry is also changing. The companies are changing. The startup culture is changing. This adds to a little more impact on the kind of workforce we have and how they perceive these organizations as well. And what can we do as HR managers or managers to ensure that we have good and engaged and motivated workforce? So let's go ahead and start this webinar. So I'll go through the presentation and then we'll also have a question and answers round, and I'll also introduce my organization as well. So the first point, whenever we talk about millennials, is that what are the general what do we do then with them, right? Just these points are, I guess, very simple, and we have to train them. And training part is one which is required by everybody. It might be millennial or 20 years experience in the industry. Everybody requires training in one certain form or the other. And we also have to recognize them for the work they do every day, day in and day out. But sometimes, in the process of recognizing them, we do overdo it. So the moment we start recognizing them for those achievements, which are very simple in form, it creates another the problem and other challenges for HR managers to handle. So that's the first do and the first don't. Okay. The second one, if possible, right, we have to give them opportunity and the ownership of the work, however small the work might be. And this is more relevant to tech teams in startups. The reason being, it is more relevant because the work in itself can be divided into multiple phases. For example, if there is an app to be developed, you can actually give them the ownership of one feature in that particular application, so that they feel that they are doing something which is really impactful for that particular organization or for that particular project, which really makes sense. And then limiting them would really lead to their dissatisfaction. So when they do not have the ownership of work what they're doing, they say, hey, there are so many people doing exactly the same thing, which I'm doing. What is the impact which I'm making in my organization or in my team or in that particular project? So that ultimately leads to dissatisfaction, and they really feel that they're not motivated, or they feel disengaged from what they are doing day in, day out. And also the managing these kind of people is also requires a lot of attention and the direction, and managers have to really pay attention what a particular person or the developer or the software engineer really wants, and they have to lead the way, help him out in terms of if he has any questions or if he's stuck at, and also give him enough space so that he can do those mistakes and correct them by themselves. Okay, and do not micromanage. Millennials hate one fact that they do not want to be micromanaged at all. So managers, this is more than HR's perspective. This is more more towards those team managers or team leads. Do not micromanage them at all. So one thing, if you are a micromanager, please stop immediately and look for other things, how you set them short-term goals and give them a pep talk if really necessary. Include your HR consultant in doing that, and and surely I'm sure that you will be able to design and give them really a goal-oriented work culture. All right, so that is general do's and don'ts. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat section. I will surely answer them at the end of my presentation. So there is one more concerns, which again, this I've seen with a lot of startups, okay, and not with multinationals, in general sense. Do not mistake their casualness for their casual behavior. Generally, millennials do want to be themselves good looking and dressed up, but there are also some of them who wants to really have a casual wear to office, and it actually completely depends on the work culture which an organization has. And they do appear in appearance wise, they do appear disengaged and casual in their approach, and this I really connect to their lack of social skills, and not to the general casualness as casual behavior at all. um, but having said that, having again, I'm making this distinction that this is again not everybody, and this is better not to assume that everybody is the same. Hence, it's better as managers to kind of give them social points, and kind of give them etiquettes pointers, or have us learning a L&D session for specifically related to social skills or etiquettes, but which can be really good for them in terms of learning those professionalisms and in general do's and don'ts in that aspect. Uh, and actually, to be very honest, millennials are worried that no one takes them seriously. That is also the thing that which they want to portray and have that connect with their managers, and they want their managers to actually take them very seriously in terms of general work and everyday. Okay, so next point is a very interesting one, which is actually slightly closer to my heart as well. So, how do you have this personal connect, either as the HR manager or the team manager or the HR perspective? How do you make them engaged, or how do you have that connect with each employee in the company? Because if the organization is about 150, it is nearly very difficult for HR consultant or a HR business partner to have those one-on-one sessions, or just to say hi, and meet them on a regular basis, right? So what do you do in aspects is a bigger question. But having said that, however difficult it might be, however the time it takes, it is always better to have that personal connect. And it is also very important for organizations to create a meaningful working environment, right? Because again, one is team handling. Second, second aspect is also about how effective is your conversation with that particular team member in the team, and if whenever possible have those one-on-one interaction with them, and specifically to HRs. Now the HR, since the role has become more enabling role here, you have to assume the role of a coach, and you have to coach the manager as well as the team members, and have that connect and have the discussions on the table. It might be any sort of discussion. It might be a general discussion about the work culture, how the team is performing, or it might be individual performances as well. And do not stick to your appraisal period, or you really don't have to stick to those numbers on the board. Sometimes millennials do perform better when they are goal oriented and informed and transparent. But having said that, I make a very important fact here that sometimes numbers do not completely make the justice to the person or the team member there. All right, so the HR's role, right? Let me just stress on a little more point that HR consultants have to make, or HR professionals have to assume the role of a fixer. What I mean by fixer is the person who has that connect with in the team, and who has these discussions with the managers first, who understand how the team is working, what the synergies are, and what are the priorities, what is going on inside the team. So the person who is having that insight is only that person can be a fixer. He can troubleshoot better problems in a better way. So have that connect, go ahead, talk to them, and it might be a coffee chat, it might be a lunch chat, or it can also be a dinner chat, or anything at all. So have that connect. All right, so moving on to the next topic again. So the next point, which is how do you keep them challenged and motivated and engaged, right? So the importance of recognitions, and what do they really want? Okay, do they want beanbags or free food or gaming stations, or what is it? And IPL tickets, or what do they want, right? So Just hold on for 1 second. I guess we are having a technical issue. Some of them are not able to hear. Let me just check on that. All right. So continuing with the presentation. All right, so I want to address this. How do you keep them challenged and motivated, and really engaged? So currently, all this, majority of startups or majority of the companies have larger. Some of them have larger tech teams, and some of them also have large sales teams and marketing teams and digital marketing teams and content and so on and so forth, right? So what do we do? To kind of keep them motivated and challenged every day. You cannot create just for the sake of it. We cannot create a really interesting work every day. So there has to be a synergy between what work is really interesting, how difficult, and again what is so impactful in that particular team, what is the best. And these calls have to be taken by those team managers and they have to design the work, and it has to be spread across days, and so that they can keep it very interesting every day, right? And in the current world of instant gratification, you have everything and entertainment on the mobiles, on handheld devices, so that makes managers work a little difficult. But having said that, it's very important to set up that work culture which is based on meritocracy and which is really goal oriented. When you set up these smaller goals inside the team, and when you also set up which is really transparent, that actually adds on so much value to that particular team. Or it might be a sales team, it might be a content team, it might be a digital marketing team. You can set up these small goals. It might be 10 or 20 or whatever that particular team, or even if it is technical team, set up those smaller goals and give those ownership and also meritocracy, and identify those people who are going beyond the work call of duty and doing that one extra thing. And just say, hey, it might be just you can pass by and say, hey, you know what, I saw that you did that particular work today and I'm really glad that you did it. Just give a pat on their back. That kind of motivates them to do more in that particular job. And also it kind of enables them to play a more active role in contribution in the team. And of course it leads to the success of the team and also by extension organizational success. So ultimately the point which I'm actually making is give that chance to somebody to face the challenge, let them solve it, and let them. So if when they take those ownership and when they face those challenges head on, that makes them more engaged and more motivated to work as well. So it is just not beanbag or free food or just not gaming stations, is it? So that's the point. In case again, feel free to just ask me any questions. I'll surely I'd come back to those things at the end of my presentation. So flexible work culture. So again, this is also a very interesting topic, which this one is particularly more towards HR consultants to the managers. This is again, what is flexible culture? So where do you draw that line? You have to be very mindful of what sort of business are you is the organization is, and you have to understand if there is a person's requirement. For example, if it is customer service, and if you are providing customer service for 24/7, if there is a realistic requirement of person who is at the desk and answering those calls, you have to draw that line and say that this is what it is, and you have to walk into the office every day, and that is the call of duty. And you have to explain those roles at the time of hiring, at the time of having one-on-ones, or at the time of having those appraisal cycles, and explain them multiple times and clearly and concisely, so that they understand what is the call of duty. So now, so flexible work culture, I have seen majority of it. So I have a question here. So what is your advice on work from home from Dinesh? So Dinesh, my advice is, again, it entirely depends on the kind of, what the what the work is all about. For example, there are certain roles, in again sticking specifically to technology here, which can be done, or telecommuting or work from home, which you can give the ownership to that particular person. For example, if it is an Android app design, which definitely they can do it from home and send you multiple designs, and you can take a call on it. But having said that, there are certain roles which cannot be handled from home. For example, if it is marketing, you really need somebody to go and visit those clients and close those deals and bring those deals home. So again, it entirely depends on that particular company and what the requirement is all about. So I hope I answered that question. We can definitely come back to it again. So again, so where do you draw that in when we are talking about a flexible work culture? What do I entirely mean by this is, if there is a realistic requirement. For example, if there is a person who wants to work from home, go ahead and give that person that space so that he can work from in comfort of home, and let him feel himself well, and take care of his health and come back to office. And once he's back, I'm sure that person will be more energetic and more motivated and more engaged in that aspects. Again, flexible work culture is more than flexi timings, right? It is also giving options to the team to choose when to work and how to work, and what do they want to work on. For example, if there is a scenario that the person wants to work on a different stack altogether in technology, and they want to kind of come back to it again, it might be working on back end or front end. So again, there is a lot of flexibility which you can kind of give that flexibility, that space to that particular person. And at least in some cases, in some scenarios, HR managers have to draw a line and be very stern and communicate clearly what is expected of that particular employee, right? When again, it's very important. If there is a business which is getting affected by some employee, you have to have that tougher discussions and say that very sternly, but can you have those communications. This is all about art of communications, right? To have that communication with that particular employee, that if there is a real business requirement, tell him that he needs to be in office from this time to from this time, and that is what is expected out of him. If you do not have this tougher conversation, this will lead to confusion. Again, ultimately you are going to see that that particular employee might leave the organization, but ultimately it is affecting your organization and your business. So be very mindful of that and draw that line if it really requires. And otherwise, if you have that sort of a luxury of giving flexi timings and flexible work culture, please go ahead and give them that opportunity. All right, so thank you so far. There are so many people here asking me multiple questions, so I will come back to all those questions at the end of my presentation. I want to concentrate a little bit on setting up and driving the goal-oriented work culture. So in the modern world, right? Since I belong to a startup industry, I want to concentrate a little more on startups. Startups do work on a lean patch, whether they're funded, not funded, bootstrapped, however, whatever the current scenario might be. Okay, what do they concentrate on first? They concentrate on how do the product is getting designed, or how do they venture into the market, how the marketing is looking like, is the timing right, is the product right, and all these sort of questions. But one thing which they do not concentrate on is how is their work culture. Is the work culture beginning to become toxic, or is it really, are we driving them to a lot of mental stress? According to one of the survey, which was actually done by AIMS, and they said that there is higher rate of suicide attempts in Bangalore in recent within 3 years. So which is actually a very interesting. Definitely there are multiple aspects to those mental health issues. But again, these things, in case if you feel that there is somebody, again, this pointer is for that particular HR consultants more than also to the managers as well. So if you feel that there is somebody who requires that sort of attention, please go ahead and give that attention to that particular person, if even if it is requires some mental health issues, or if that person is facing any kind of these health issues. All right. So even sometimes, even with best intentions, right, we forget to communicate the critical information to our own teams. For example, it might be company-wide communication, the changes, or you might be pivoting on a business plan, or you might be concentrating on one particular business unit more than that. But have those conversations, communicate, clearly and concisely and repetitively, so that everybody knows, everybody are on the same page, and at least they know what are those goals which are there in that particular month, in that particular quarter, or in that particular year. And one of the best methods I have seen is town halls. Town halls, you don't have to do it every month and spend a lot of money on it. You can have just a circular meeting in rooftop garden in your office, or just bring in some cool drinks and chips and have those conversations. And you can also really make it interesting, and you can actually have some, something very creative ideas about it. All right. So again, so you have to, again, here the HR consultant can play a very active role building that sort of a culture which is based on objectives and goals, and let that work culture be very transparent, and define those organization goals and team goals, and more specific to managers. Managers, please go ahead and talk to your team members what exactly is your targets are for that particular week or that particular month. If you do not communicate that, then they do not know, and then their work is getting affected. All right. So, and we have surveyed more than 40% of the employees in, again, this is very specific to startups here, and again, I'm not making an assumption here, this is a fact. Surveyed more than 40% of the employees said that they do not understand or haven't heard about the organization's objectives at all, because it is not coming down to the bottom layer in the organization, and most of the views what they have is really from down and looking up. So it is better to have quarterly objectives or monthly objectives, and it is really important to communicate the organization goals, and also celebrate those success with them. It might be reaching 50 likes, or it might be reaching that target for first quarter. Celebrate those minor small successes with the team, and this is not from an HR angle, this is complete from manager's perspective or team lead's perspective. If there is a person who has done extraordinary, or if even if he has met his goals, celebrate those small success with them, which becomes really important for them, and they feel motivated. And who doesn't like to be recognized, right? So when you celebrate success, who doesn't want to celebrate success? Please tell me. All right. So that's about again. So let me just come back to the point which I said earlier. So set up the goals and set up meritocracy, so that it kind of helps them, and be transparent what the goals are. So that's about it. All right, thank you. Let's go to the next one. So how to mentor them as coaches and not as managers? Okay, so this is going to be a little tricky one to understand for managers, right? Typically, if you see anybody who goes to the break room, what do they complain about, right? It's typically they want to complain about their managers, isn't it? So why do they do that? Have you thought, or you as manager, have you ever thought, why do they complain about managers? And as we all know, they don't, most of them, when they put down their papers, it's just not because of the company. It is majority of the times it is because of the manager and the work culture, what is there in that particular company. And then, it is about money. So, again, so you have to do a little groundwork here, right? You need to prepare yourself, really assess them, have a conversation with them, understand what is their goal in future, and how you can play an active role in setting up again to make them as professionals, making them as a full stack developer or whatever the goal might be. Sometimes you have to play that role of a mentor. Have that conversation. What do they want to do over a period of time? It might be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. Have the in case if there is a realistic requirement that person has to pick up a new skill in terms of technology, play a enabler's role and help them to probably you can give him your personal access in Udemy or something like that, so that they can pick up that skill and perform better. Again, these all skills play a very important role in your own team, and do not think that they'll learn and they'll leave your team and go and join a different company. So again, do not be just a manager. Managers only manages their team, but coaches become leaders. So you have to become a coach and understand from employees' perspective, what do they want? Is there a necessity of probably let's understand. Let's take an example. If, for example, if there is a person who wants to who does not know how to manage his finances, okay, if you are good at it, go ahead, have the discussion. You can or probably get your finance teams or finance heads time, arrange that meeting with a finance head or a CFO, and help him out understand his taxes. So that will not only help you, help that person, and also it will it's going to help your team in the long run. So go ahead and do that. All right, so that's about how to mentor them as coaches and not as managers. So you don't have to be manager all the times, right? So you can be a friend sometime, and when it is required as a manager, if the person is not performing or if is not adhering to your schedules, that is when you actually become a manager and give him his goals. All right, so that's about that particular topic, and that's overall about the topic, mistakes that managers make while managing deals. So in general, if I have to really look at, let me make an extension here. We Indians, I really feel that the millennial population today, what we have in India, is really, really motivated and really talented. I do not feel that really we have pay close attention to what sort of work they want to do in over a period of time. So have those conversations, have those one-on-ones, have those chai sessions if possible, have those coffee sessions, and and even from HR perspective, it is about have a designed policy in an organization. Probably Xoxoday will definitely help you out in designing a very good policy and good engagement programs for your company. So have that conversation with them as well. All right, so so let me introduce my organization as well. So currently, I work for an organization called Media, Entertainment, and Arts Worldwide. This is us looking from India towards Western world. So we cater largely to the Western audiences, and again, you can definitely go to meaww.com, and we also have another business which is called pubninja.com, where it is more about publications, and you can definitely go to call it meow.com, but although it is meaww.com. All right, so my name is Vishal. Again, let me open this up for questions. Let me see if we can address some of those questions in the chat. All right, so I have a question from Venkatesh. Venkatesh is asking, are there any differences in your findings between millennials who join the workforce from urban and semi-urban and rural areas? Definitely, Venkatesh. Again, this requires a lot of research. In my findings, there has been difference. The persons who are actually coming from urban workforce, we find them to be, really motivated, sometimes engaged. But people who are coming from rural and urban areas, I also find them to be very hardworking and very focused. So there is a slight difference in these people, being engaged and being really motivated to work. so the people, whatever I have felt is that people coming from semi-urban areas or probably rural areas are really motivated, and they are engaged in a way that they go well beyond their call of duty and do whatever it is necessity for them to do that particular job in that particular day. But in probably for a urban millennial, he would walk into the office, complete his tasks, and do a little bit more, which is really impactful, and just walk out of the office. So that's the difference what I have seen so far. I hope I answered the question. So let's go to the next one. Let's see if there are any more questions. Okay, so there is one more. So Akanksha asks me that still advise on nine hours working. Akansha, I really believe that it is very subjective to what sort of a office is it. What exactly are you guys doing? There are I belong to media and technology media world. Is a necessity of people being in the office, because for example, let's say that there is which is news which is happening in US. We have to have those editors in place or journals in place to cover that particular topic and see what is exactly is happening. Although I will not say that you have to pick, we do in media entertainment and arts worldwide, we do not have set timings as 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. sort of a job role, but we do have certain people working around the clock, and it does require somebody to be there in the office. So that's about it. So Chinu asks me a question that, hi Vishal, when we try to become coach, we may times notice that people take advantage and go casual and heeding to the instruction. Okay. So Chinu, again, it is to draw that a fine line. You have to actually play in a fine line, and when to become the friend, when to become a mentor, and when to become a coach, and when to become a manager. Okay, whenever you are in office and there is something, some stuff has to get done by the end of the day, you have to become that particular manager and get things done. But this does not mean that you really have to be a manager and who just bosses them every day around, right? So you can be a friend at times. So you have to play that role very, very well, that you can be a good friend, you can also be a mentor, and you can also be a coach at the same time. Yeah. So Tuhin asks me one more question. What happens in cases of managers who manage the team remotely? Okay, very interesting and very good question. Thank you, Tuhin, for it enables me to answer that. So I have worked with multinationals before when I had remote managers managing them. What actually happens is that although sometimes rarely work does get affected when there is nobody to monitor them and see them, but in the current market, right, it also speaks about it. It actually you'll have to look at from a different view angle here. How experienced is your team? Is how many freshers do you have in your team, and how many of them are in this space of 1 to 3 years experience? If your team is experienced enough that they can handle themselves well and they can be very professional at it, go ahead and have a remote working teams and also a manager who can manage the team remotely. But having said that, right, this is my personal opinion. Again, I'm making this with a very in closed quotations, that I feel that every manager is a leader, and he has to be present with the team, and he's just not he's a key and very essential part of that particular team. So yeah, I'm up for it. If that particular business enables you to be a remote manager, very good. I hope I answered your questions there. So if you have any more questions right now. Any more questions? All right. So in case if you have further questions, you can definitely drop an email and reach out to me at vishal@meaworld.com, or also at vishalmn@gmail.com as well. And feel free to get connected on LinkedIn. I'll definitely try to answer your questions. All right, thank you. Let me thank you so much for attending this webinar. Let me just pass it on to Shivam.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Vishal, for such insightful session. And for everyone asking if we will be sending the PPT, yes, we will be mailing you the PPT and also the webinar video. And thanks a lot for attending the webinar. Please reach out to us on our Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter page. You can just type Xoxoday and we'll be answering your calls. Thank you.